Hello, everybody. My name is Sunil Kalwani. I'll be talking to you today about somatic intelligence, how the body is this receptive vehicle for learning and how we've been really engaging the body in this way our entire lives. In fact, what I'm going to teach you today isn't really anything you don't already know. I'm only going to be giving you language and structure around processes you've been subconsciously engaging your entire life. And to show you just how much your body knows already, I want to take you on a little journey. So go ahead and close your eyes. Just feel your body. Feel whatever sensations are arising. Notice if there's any tingling or any heat, maybe some cool sensation. If maybe there's pain, maybe there's just an area in your body that's calling your attention right now. And so your body has been giving you information your entire life through these sensations. And some of that information includes emotion. So maybe you're even feeling emotion right now. But the really cool part about all of this is that all of your experiences that your body has lived through live in your body. And so you can recall them at any time. So we're going to play with this a little bit right now. So I want you to think the word happy. You can even speak it to yourself. You can say, I am happy, or I feel happy. And just notice what sensations come up with happy. Maybe there's the beginning of a smile on your mouth, or perhaps a warming and opening in the chest. What happens in your body when you say, I am happy? Okay, we're going to shift gears now. I would like you to think the word sad. Again, you can say, I am sad, I feel sad. And just notice your body as it responds to sad. How is it shifting? How is it feeling? Perhaps there's a collapsing inwards in the chest or a slumping of the shoulders. Maybe even the feeling of tears behind the eyes. What are the sensations that you're noticing in your body? Okay, so we're playing with some really basic universal emotions, ones that we all know really well. I'm going to go a little bit more nuanced now. And I'd like you to relate to the word relaxed. How does your body feel relaxation? What feelings are you noticing? What sensations are arising? Okay, next we're going to move to an emotion that might be a little less comfortable. Repulsed. So what does repulsion feel like, to be repulsed? To think I am repulsed. Like in my body, My chin wants to tuck away. My brow and my nose want to crinkle a little bit. But that's my body. What's happening in your body? And some of these sensations might be nuanced. That's okay. If you're having a little bit of difficulty tracking, it doesn't mean that your body's not still relating to it in subtle ways. Okay, we're going to do another one now. Curious. Curiosity. So again, I am curious. I feel curious. And what are the sensations you're noticing? Okay, the next one's going to be a bit more complicated, but I trust you guys to be able to manage it. So I'd like you to explore this thought with me. A desire I have long yearned for is becoming fulfilled and realized. So once again, that's a desire I have long yearned for is becoming fulfilled and realized. And as you relate to that story, which is not just one emotion, but many emotions, many thoughts, what are you noticing in your body? How is this story evolving in you sensorially? How does longing being fulfilled, the beginning of fulfillment, how does that feel? Okay, thank you for doing this little journey with me. Now just start to feel a bit more neutral and receptive in your body, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And as we all come back, I would like to open it up and see if anybody would like to share their experience. Maybe like one or two people, and then we can also have it go to the chat if need be. So anybody feel like sharing? Shelley.
I just want to share something that I found very interesting with when you started out the exercise, that happy thing. I went there, but I was kind of like going in my mind, my thoughts were going, "Oh no, he's going to go to some hard thing next." So I wasn't really able to get to the whole happy thing. And then when we got to sad, it was like I could breathe. I thought that was just interesting. So I just wanted to share that, but very cool.
Cool. So anticipation kind of didn't let you really settle in your body with the first one. And then you got to settle in your body when the anticipation became realized. Cool. Yeah, Barbara, go ahead.
Actually, I forgot, but now that Shelley said that, I was like feeling pretty good with happy. And when you went to sad, I got angry because I thought now he's just screwing with us. I don't want to go to sad. Anyway, so that was interesting.
Cool.
I felt
So
like we should have, well, we did end on like a good one, like a more solid, like, you know, so I was glad that we transferred back to like a more optimistic sort of feeling at the end. Yeah, okay.
cool, cool. I'm even curious. I'm wondering if that relationship with anger and sadness is
Could be both.
something that plays out in life too.
Yes, could be. Could
So
very well be.
very cool. All right, and I see uh, Kim said when I said relax, she felt how not relaxed she was in her body. Very cool. Okay, so I'm just curious though. Can I get a show of hands in terms of like, were you able to feel these sensations in your body and notice, hey, I do have these stored in here? Yes, I'm getting nods, I'm getting hands. Cool. Very cool. So I'm gonna share my screen. And you see, I can do this. Okay, there we go. Okay, so what we just went over is the first tool of somatic intelligence I would like to share with you, which is body remembrance. And you can think of body remembrance as the body storing and recalling states it has already experienced. So, so when I'm talking about body remembrance, what we explored right now was very much these emotions that everybody knows very well. And so the body, whether you're engaging with body remembrance or not, subconsciously has relationships with these states. But the really cool thing about this is it's not just these places we have gone over and over to again and again that we know. Any momentary experience we have had is stored in the body. And if we recall, how did our body feel while we were having that experience, we can bring out the emotions, the thoughts, the energetics behind that experience. And so a large reason why I want to share this with you is because it's been really helpful on my journey of having these moments of realization of, oh, I think I know this thing. I think I know how to be this way, but I don't really. And by having the reflection of, okay, my body felt this way, for example, with feeling grounded. Oftentimes you'll hear people say in the spiritual world, imagine a grounding cord going to the center of the earth. For me, that didn't necessarily make me feel grounded though. It was a good way to engage my imagination and feel settled, but it took me to have an embodied experience of feeling calmer, center, more connected to the floor, more connected to the earth, slower in my body. And once when I had that embodied experience, I went back to it again and again as a way to understand what it was like to be grounded. And so you can utilize memories to access places that you don't have as much experience with yet. And likewise, in the future, you can say, oh, this is an experience I want to remember. Let me notice what's happening in my body as a way to bookmark it. And in time, have a deeper relationship with this state that I'm currently in. And right now, again, we used emotion, but how I use it in my everyday has kind of gone beyond emotion and is more towards, rather than emotional or mental states, it's in energetic states. And I just use it as a way to orient myself and say, this is how I feel in my body, and this is how I am in integrity with my body. And because I know that so well and intimately now, I'm using it as a way to keep true to who I want to be and as a way to cultivate further evolution when I feel something new and unique that I want to also embody and remember and experience again and again. So that is body remembrance. And the way I described it, not too many people use it that way, but we almost universally and culturally, everybody uses this one tool that I'm calling triggers. And so the word triggers is very popular and in vogue in today's culture as more awareness comes around mental and emotional well-being and health. I'm using the word in a slightly different way. Think more of how a shepherd might blow a dog whistle and get the dog to get really alert for potential predators so that they get in a very protective mode of the herd. So that is more the meaning I'm looking for. And another way to describe that is to engage consciously in a behavior or to receive stimulation as a way to access a specific state. And so again, this is something we all do all the time culturally. I even did it preparing for this presentation. When we went into that experience at the beginning, that guided journey, I did that as for a very specific reason, because I know speaking in that way and doing an exercise like that can create calm and steadiness within me. We use this all the time in other ways. For example, when you're drinking coffee in the morning, it's to create a certain activated awake state. Or when you're having alcohol, it's oftentimes as a way to feel more relaxed and uninhibited. And so we use these triggers and in some ways are relying on the stimulus, but you can actually create those states just by remembering the experience it's creating in your body. And so that's a way to bridge from using triggers as a way to get into a specific state to body remembrance. So those are a couple tools. The next one I want to go over is transmission, or how I like to describe it is templating. And so this is one where you actually don't have to have had a lived experience of a state. You can have somebody else be a reference. So this is when you use another body as a reference to relate to a state you have yet to experience. And so this is the reason that we had apprenticeships a long time ago. Like, for example, the blacksmith. It wasn't just about watching their behaviors. That was important too. I'm not discounting that. But literally their body was giving information of the mastery of the skill. And so just being around their body taught the apprentice what they needed to learn. And this is also why we have things like oral tradition. So for a long time, we wouldn't write as a way of passing knowledge. We would speak and express. And of course, the emotions we were sharing in our stories were great ways of really evoking something in that moment. But also there was an embodied expression too. Even if no words were spoken, just being in the presence of that person started to create some understanding and knowledge that they were trying to pass along. And this process of transmission and templating is something we are unconsciously engaging all the time. Our bodies are learning from literally everyone and everything we come in contact with. And we are teaching literally everyone and everything about what we know as well. Oftentimes you'll see subcultures, for example, having very specific tones or intonations into how they speak, accents, if you will. You'll also see like certain tensions and holding patterns of how they kind of engage their face. Like oftentimes certain subcultures will have like tension in the jaw, for example, or they'll kind of furrow the brow a little bit more as a way to encourage the body to think a little bit more. And so another good example of this is back in high school, all of the emo kids or all of the jocks or all of the nerds, right? All of those types of subcultures, they had very specific ways that they all subconsciously agreed as to how they want to behave. And they created that together by someone or many of them embodying expertise in what it is like to be emo. And then they start to teach everybody else. And then they the person who's then getting taught eventually teaches others over time. So that is the three main tools around somatic intelligence I want to cover today. I am actually going to now give a demonstration of what templating looks like by going into certain states and showing you how you can relate to these. So while I'm doing this, I would like you, when I change states, just to notice what it feels like to see me shift, to see if you can pinpoint what exactly is happening, and also to notice what's happening in your body as it relates to me shifting. So the first one I'm going to go into is mischievousness. So my tenor might change a little bit, my tone might change a little bit, but really what's happening is I'm connecting to a more mischievous part of my body, a sensation I already know very well and intimately. And I'm bringing that out a little bit. And again, you might hear inflection shifts, or you might even notice my hands moving, or maybe even facial shifts in how I'm talking, small tics or expressions that weren't there before. But really, it's just all about mischievousness. I'm connecting to an energy, and these are just effects that are coming out of it. It's an easy way to learn about what this thing is until you get used to the feeling yourself. So this is mischievousness. And now I'm going to shift into being really heart-centered, being a bit more receptive, just feeling tender and soft in myself. And again, you might notice a shift in my tone. It's gotten a little gentler. You saw me sit back. I'm getting a little bit more comfortable. So all those things are happening. But again, it's not so much that I'm saying, oh, I need to sit back to be in my heart. I got in my heart, and then everything else is a response to that. And again, as I'm talking about all this stuff, just notice what I'm doing, but also notice how your body is responding. Just feel the sensations in your body. Even if you can't pinpoint what they are, or they don't feel like, oh, this is me in my heart. It's your body taking in information and learning from a template. And so now I'm going to get really focused and get really precise and get really attached to the ground and be really centered on conveying a point to you. And again, just notice what's happening in your body. Notice even the shifts in my behavior. Notice maybe a tonal shift, something a little bit more down and concentrated. My gestures are getting a little bit more pinpointed and precise. And again, this is not that I'm purposefully going into these gestures and saying, this is how I convey focus. They're the results of me being in a focused place. Okay, now I'm going to let it all go and just check in with all of you. How was that? Anyone want to share some thoughts or questions in terms of the example or the material, the definitions I laid out? Christy, I see you're unmuted.
Yeah. I have to be honest, the first one, mischievousness, I didn't quite get. I couldn't, whatever was happening in there, even though you described it, I wasn't picking up on. But the minute you shifted, I could feel the shift when you pulled back and you were more tender. And the one I got the most was when you're focused. And I was thinking it would be interesting to see if you shifted that and made us actually, try and guess what you were doing, because it was like I found myself, at least my acuity was getting better as time went on.
Cool. Thank you, Christy. Anybody else like to share on the demo or have questions about what we've been over so far? And the chat is fine too if you don't want to put your voice in the space. Yeah, Jackie.
It was interesting. I noticed how much I was in reaction to you. Like, I'm listening and watching and, kind of tracking your descriptions and seeing. And then also at the same time, I was very aware of how I react to the mischievousness or to the heart-centered or to the focused. It was, yeah, it just highlights how complex the communication can be and like how much happens that we don't, or that I don't pay attention to necessarily, that you know you do, but you don't. So it's really interesting to think like the times that you catch it, how much information is really there.
Sure, sure, totally. And this is all also like very new things that I'm conveying to you, or maybe you have some experience with this already, but the way the body is going to be processing these things is different than what the conscious mind is processing as well. So it'll be interesting to see how these evolve over time. Anybody else want to chime in for a little bit? Yeah, Barbara.
I don't want to take us too much off track. I feel this is similar in a way to things that we've learned through polarity or elsewhere, like with NLP. Though in those cases, it could be a little bit more manipulative, possibly, but hopefully in a way that's good for the client, you know, that you want to breathe. If the person is like really agitated, you breathe it a certain way to help them calm down, or you know, assess and do a little leading or pacing and leading kind of to maybe alter the state a little bit. But it's more about that in a relationship maybe than assessing your own pacing and leading. Anyway, it's very interesting. It's a very interesting process, and I love your terminology and the way you're working with it. So yeah, and I see what Jackie means about how you could react to what you're doing, or you could just go with it. And I definitely, like Christy, also felt the heart-centered and the focused way more than the first one. I sort of felt actually when you were talking about mischievousness that you were going to become mischievous and show us it, that it wasn't happening at the same time you were talking about it. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, I missed it. So anyway, but anyway, thank you.
Thank you. And I heard also you were noticing like the mirroring quality is something that other frameworks also use as well and build off of. Cool. Well, I would love to have you guys explore some of this. So we're going to be playing with body remembrance and with transmission and templating through telling stories. And we're going to be telling very simple stories, but stories of transformation. So it could be something like getting a cup of coffee and feeling a bit more awake after you drink it. Or it could be like doing a yoga pose and feeling more relaxed, or maybe getting a really good score on a test and realizing you don't suck at math. So it could be just whatever story of transformation you want to tell in a couple of minutes. And as one person tells the story, the other person, I'm going to break you up into breakout rooms with 2 people. The other person is just going to listen, and then they're going to use their attention in 3 ways. One is to hear the content of the story. The second is to notice what shifts they're seeing in the other person as they're expressing naturally. What states are they going into? And then the third is noticing what's happening in their body as those state shifts are happening. And so again, this is all could be a little overwhelming. So don't even think too much about it. You don't need emotional names. Just try to see what you can do. And for the purposes of demonstration, I'm going to have Jonathan share a story of his, and then I'm going to reflect. So I'm going to put us in the spotlight. And do you see both of us? No? How about now? Is that better?
Still just you, I think.
Really?
You need to pin both.
I have pinned both. Let's see. How about this? Is this better?
It's still just you. Can you spotlight him? Can you just go under his name?
Yeah.
Picture
Yeah.
and
Yeah, there we go. I'll just Jonathan spotlighted now, yeah? Okay, how about this? Is this better?
That's
Yeah,
perfect.
there you
Cool.
go.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you for working with me there. All right, so Jonathan, take it away.
All right, just a lighthearted story, huh?
Lighthearted story.
Okay. Um, because Shelly's in the space, I'm going to tell a story about Shelly. Uh, so last week I went over to Shelly's house to help her with her chickens. And Shelly has a beautiful yard with trees, and she's doing a lot of work in her garden and putting in beds, and we did a lot of work there. And Shelly's chicken coop, which she calls lovingly the chicken Taj Mahal because it's a huge white chicken palace. She has chickens in there, and she needed help with her chickens because they have little parasites in her butt, on their butts and all over. And so I went in to the chicken coop, and that was really fun. And that was kind of a new experience for me because I've had a lot of experience with chickens. And Shelly kind of she was teaching me how to pick them up and turn them around and kind of like manhandle them in various ways, which is like, you know, when you see a chicken, it's kind of like terrifying. You don't know what they're gonna do. They could pick your eyeballs out or something, but you never know. But yeah, it was just like a really fun experience to be able to hold a chicken and like to pet it. And it was really cool because once you like, they're actual like, I think just like getting chickens from the grocery store for the longest time, it's like you don't necessarily think of them as like animals, you know? But they, you know, you pet them and they coo, and one of them was closing their eyes, and like you could see their like eyes roll back into her head because she was like just loving the massage so much. And so yeah, we turned the chicken, and some of them had like parasites, and we sprayed their butts with parasite spray. And that was pretty cool. I've never looked at chicken butts so thoroughly in my life before. Yeah, and it was just a really neat experience. And then we had to clean out the coop because the chickens had parasites, so we had to change out all of their bedding and all of the straw and dirt on the floor, and that was a little bit of labor, but it was also fun, and I needed it because I've gotten fat since COVID.
Cool. Do you mind if I share what I
Please.
was tracking with all of that? So first of all, your connection with Shelly is like there's really a lot of beauty and joy. And when you first started, I was noticing and feeling in my body just affection and also a bit of excitement that you're going to be telling this story. And then you went into this really creative place, and that felt really imaginative as you were telling the story. And I appreciated the detail that you were going into, and it just felt very alive. And then you started to go give us some examples of certain playful things, and then like you kind of brought out this like really mischievous quality of like the spraying the butts, and just you went into a lot of stuff that to me felt really like devilish in like a very tricky way, you know. And then you kind of started to shift gears after telling that story back into the good feeling of, oh, it feels good to be in relation to Shelley and to be doing this action and activity, and went back into the heart space. And then when you ended, just kind of getting more into like that nitty gritty of, and then we had to do this thing, and kind of like you were bringing that, okay, now it's just about cleaning out the pen. Mm-hmm. And then ended with a little bit of a playful again.
Yeah, I had to just reaffirm.
Yeah, the masculinity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cool. No, that's spot on. Absolutely.
Cool. So that's basically what we're going to be doing. I'm going to remove you from the spotlight, Jonathan. Any questions? Nope. Does anybody not want to go into a breakout room? Okay, I guess we got a bunch of willing participants. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes right now to come up with your story. And then once when you do that, I'm going to put you into breakout rooms. Okay, how are we doing? It looks like everyone's everyone's pretty good. I do notice Barbara is not here though. Oh, there she is. So has everybody got their story? Anybody need more time? Okay, in that case, so Jonathan and Fiona, I'll have you stay in the main room with me, and then everybody else hop to it.
Fiona.
Jonathan.
Yes.
So I've got a story. Okay.
Ooh, I love stories.
So my story, yesterday I went for a walk with someone I haven't known very long. It's been quite a hard thing to make friends here in Malta. I've been here 4 years. And it was a beautiful day, and it reminded me of how beautiful Malta is and how much I love being here and how lucky I am to be living in this amazing island. And as we were walking along, we were talking about stuff, how our poetry, I ride with her, and how our trainer's quite explosive and he triggers something in me that he puts me in a place that's not very comfortable. And it was nice to be able to share that. Yeah, it felt that felt, you know, it was important to share. And I'm trying to find friends here that I can be messy with and I can be myself and not be a therapist. And then we were walking along and it was hot and it just felt really nice to walk, you know. Sometimes I just forget and I don't do enough. And when you're with someone else, it makes you go that much further. And when we got back afterwards, I felt really tired and satisfied, and I just came home and I thought, yeah, that feels like the beginning of a friendship. That was easy, and it was nice to be able to share something with somebody else. And there you go.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Would you like a little reflection back? Actually, we're not reflecting.
No, we're not.
Yeah, I'll just tell you what I noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear you. I felt like when you started to talk about, well, at the beginning of your story, you mentioned how it's been hard for you to make friends in Malta, and I kind of felt a contraction around my chest and a kind of like dipping down. But then as soon as you talked about like how beautiful Malta is and how much you loved being outside and how it reminded you of being in Malta, it was just like this explosion. Like it felt just like this uplift come up through me. And again, as you were talking about your trainer and how he's hard and how it's been difficult to kind of make those connections in Malta, it kind of like went back down into that place, a similar kind of contracting feeling. But then it kind of, yeah, and then you went kind of back up as you were talking about the walk again, but then you kind of, there was like a feeling of resolution as you ended with like, you know, it felt like that this relationship, this friendship could be something that could be long-term or sustainable. It kind of like, that was like a different feeling. It felt like set back, like I felt like more in my body, and it was like an expansiveness, almost like a humility almost, you know?
Yeah, I'd say that's spot on.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Thank you, Jonathan.
How's that for you in your body?
Yeah, I as you were explaining it to me, it helps me to consolidate it in my own system, what I was feeling.
Yeah.
I could to a certain extent feel it when I was saying the story, and I didn't want to overcomplicate the story. I just wanted it to be, that's why I chose a story, that something that it was easy. and it helps. Yeah, it gives space around it.
Cool.
It always helps to have things have it is kind of a reflection in a way, because it does help me to consolidate what's going on.
Cool. That's awesome.
I guess it's your turn. Do you want to tell another story?
Yeah, I'll tell another story. I'll tell a walking story too, because I like walks. So usually where I go for walks, there's like, I live in Albuquerque in the South Valley. It's like it's Mexico basically. It's a very Hispanic, multicultural area, lower income, people just ride their horses and donkeys down the street. It's very old world. But there's an area very close to the river, about 5 minutes away, where I go to walk my dog. And it's beautiful. It's called the Bosque. And it's like there's old cottonwood trees that are just starting to blossom now. Everything is becoming more alive. And it's about 100 years ago, the Rio Grande was about 6 times what it is today. And it used to be just like this massive flood forest. Like cottonwood trees, actually, they can only repopulate when there's consistent flooding. So because there hasn't been consistent flooding in the last 50 years, the trees can't repropagate and the forest has diminished as a result, but it's still very wild. You can go in there and I see coyotes all the time. I see owls. I see there's beavers, and it's very feral. So as a result of that, and my dog being walked there all the time, my dog is also quite feral. So we're walking, and I usually throw him sticks, and he likes it, and he's a good boy, and he sits and he waits for the sticks. But then he'll hear a sound. Usually it's the sound of geese, because there's cranes and geese that are just in the middle of the river, just bathing and drinking. And so all of a sudden he takes off, and now he's in the middle of the river chasing the geese and the cranes. And usually that's okay, but on this specific occasion, I had somewhere to be. I had to get somewhere in a half an hour. So I was, it ended up with me like at the banks of the river, just like calling for him, trying to rein him in, trying to get him to listen to me. But at that point, as soon as those instincts are initiated, like he's gone. He's just like just hurling through the water, trying to chase something he'll never ever catch. And then he gets tired, and then he looks around at me, and then he just keeps going. Yeah, so that's my story.
Oh, that was beautiful, Jonathan. I loved it. When you started talking about the Arizona and where you live, I have this sensation. It feels like an information that there's a lot going on in the back of my cortex. And then when you talked about the bosque and walking through the forest, I could feel my heart opening up. And then it went back in when you talk about deforestation. There was a moment that felt like a closing up. And I loved it when you talked about your dog and the playfulness that came on. And then when you talked about him running away and you needed to be somewhere, I could feel a nervousness, like an agitation of, it was almost like, why? And then after that, with him running through the water and and it felt like resignation, and getting to a place of ease with your dog and your surroundings.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's super cool to hear.
It went through quite a lot of
emotions. Yeah,
it's like him running, your dog
running. Yeah, exactly. I know, it's so interesting how many emotions are just in like a short, light story,
a lot of playfulness, and underneath the playfulness, there is other undercurrents of other emotions that I felt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting to hear that you felt contraction when I started talking about the forest, because I think for me, there's climate change is pretty close to my heart. And for me, there's so much grief around just like witnessing the changing of places that I spend time in and that I love, which isn't something that I said explicitly, but it's something that you picked up on through just tuning into the feeling and the felt sense in your body.
Definitely, I can almost still feel it, but thank you, that was great. How did that feel? It felt good to hear, did it?
Yeah, it did. It felt good to hear. Yeah, absolutely. It felt good to tell too.
There's so much in a story, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to tell another story?
Coming to the end, wrapping up. I don't think I have time to tell another story. I'll tell you another day, Jonathan.
Another day about a bear nest, maybe.
Another day, another story.
Another day, another story.
That was a very cool exercise.
Yes.
Cool. Glad to hear it. They've got like another minute or two, but I just was like, pushing them along.
Yeah, little stories. I'm trying to think of a little story. Oh, I've got a little story. So I've been trying to get a vaccination because and I've been through the frustration because the website where you register doesn't acknowledge my card, and so I've gone from laughing about it, how they passed me on, to getting really frustrated about it. And today we were in Gozo and I went along. A friend suggested that I go along and see if I can just wing it and get it. And suddenly I thought, yeah, I can just go and wing it. And when I got there, they weren't doing any vaccinations. So I could feel myself go, okay, that's not going to happen. There you are, a little story.
Got it. Is there another opportunity?
Yeah, I'll go tomorrow and see if I can wing it as well.
Just show up.
Yeah, because if you don't fit exactly in the system, then it takes a long time to get things done. Back.
No, okay. Thank you, Fiona.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Okay. We are coming back. I think we're almost all here. How was that for you all? Cool. Anybody like to share what their experience was like?
Very cool exercise for me. I think it's it's an interesting muscle to work. I think especially for many of us in Gary's classes, we're so used to reflecting and we're like mirroring with our bodies. But this is like, for me, this exercise was almost like you have to be more of an observer, you have to be more neutral, and you have to be more receptive. I think for me, when I'm in mirroring or I'm in reflection, there's a little bit of intentionality still to that is like where I'm trying to, like, I'm feeling what the other person is feeling and I'm mirroring that, but it's like there's like an end goal that I'm trying to get towards, but I think just being the observer and just, you're just like, oh, okay, now we're in upset. Oh, okay, now there's expansion happening, and just to allow that to be in space is cool.
Cool. So it feels more spacious than other forms of mirroring. Any other feelings or anyone else who wants to share what that was like for them? Barbara said we had a good time. That's good to hear. Anybody else? Bueller? Oh, Shelly.
I'll share. Um, I enjoyed that. I got to work with Nami, and it was well, I love Nami. I love everybody, but it was I liked what Jonathan said about uh, not trying to mirror, but like I'm so I don't know if I've always been that way, and I just became aware of it through the polarity training, but I felt myself doing that without trying to do it anyway. And when and her story in the beginning was super brief, and it was like again another anticipatory thing. Like it's so I mean like that's what I'm getting for myself in this little exercise. By the way, it's like how much I'm in the future, in the moment. Like there's always like it's I know it's coming. Like there's something coming. And so when she was telling her like when she went into her thing, I went right into her thing with her. Like it was like this. Yeah, I mean, like I felt myself doing it with her, not trying to mirror her. And I don't know if it was anticipation or if I don't know what it was. It's interesting. I'm sitting with it. But anyway, um, it was really cool having her reflect back to me what she noticed in what I did. And it was like it just like I started talking about like because Jonathan told the chicken story, I was gonna tell that story too. And so like, I can't tell a story here. I told a story. But anyway, she said she encouraged me to do it. But when I was saying I have so much yard work, I was pushing that back out there. And then when I was talking about, she said when I was talking about Jonathan, and the story ended up becoming about Jonathan and my son. So it wasn't the story I was going to tell. But then when I was talking about like Jonathan and the chickens and my son, I would come back in here with all the work out there and all the people that I love and here. Like, so I was doing that with my body, which was a really cool thing for her to point out because it definitely reflects how I feel about all that fucking work and all the people and things I love. And then it was just really cool. It was just really cool. It was really cool. And I'm really grateful that I got to be with Nami because I love her energy and feeling the thing because I was sandwiched in between two of her stories. She told a really short one and a really short one, but like hers were like powerful. Yeah. And then powerful. So I'm feeling pretty jazzed. Thank you.
Awesome. Even in you telling the story, there's a story. I love it. Christy, go ahead.
It's interesting that Shelley would say about the anticipatory thing. I felt the opposite. I felt myself slow down for change. I think I'm normally the other way. I think I'm normally trying to skip ahead to the end to try and solve the problem. And this actually slowed me down to be able to see the subtlety in people's bodies. And I'm grateful for that because it was really cool because you could do the journey a little bit better. At least for me, it was great.
Awesome. So felt a little slower and you could see the subtleties more.
Yeah, the subtleties you could pick about the little, it gave me better cues to see what was happening.
Very cool. Very cool. Laura, yeah, go for it.
I thought that this whole hour kind of made me more aware of how much I do this consciously all the time. To like, and maybe it's my acting training, because we do a lot of sense memory and we do a lot of mirror, we do a lot of that work of like, how do you resonate each other's body? But it's like one of the main tools that I use to get people where I want to get them. And even as I was telling the story to Kim, and I took my sweet time telling the story. I took way too much time. But I was telling the story, but I was also very conscious of like where I was going with my body and what I was doing, like the states that I was eliciting in myself, hopefully to elicit them in her as well. And I wonder, like, I don't know if it's good or bad, but I'm like, I'm just aware of it.
Sure. Yeah, very cool. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, there's a lot of overlap for sure with some of this stuff in acting or presenting. Definitely a way to really explore this in a deep way is like to do improv. And you'll really see how subtle cues can tell a lot of information and how your subtle cues can convey a lot as well. Okay, so I'm going to just, before we wrap, I want to bring up that one screen again. I think it should be, there it is. So just again, today we went over somatic intelligence, and we went over a few different things, principally body remembrance and templating, and how body remembrance is a way that we can notice things in our body or bring things out in our body that have been there because we have experienced them, and how templating is a way that we can relate to experiences that we're not in touch with at the moment or that we have never even experienced, and our body over time can learn how to create a map to an experience. And you can go somewhere through somebody else rather than through a very first person visceral experience, which I think is also quite cool. So just wanted to end there. And then I'm going to save this and share it with you in case anybody would like to see the whiteboard again. They will get that. I think with that, I'm going to stop that share. And I want to thank you all for participating in this class with me, learning a bit more about something you've known already your entire life and have been engaging with for your entire life. Hopefully this has given you a bit more structure to engage it more consciously going forward. All right, thank you everybody for coming out. Appreciate you.